The results from the lab hit me like a freight train. My own son had poisoned me, and that more than anything left me gasping for air. It's strange how birthdays seem to lose their magic as the years go by. At 63, I hardly feel the excitement I once did. No big celebrations, no grand gestures, just another day in the quiet rhythm of my life. The years slip away so easily, and you start to wonder if anything really changes. I woke up this morning with no fanfare. The sky was still the same soft gray as it always is this time of year. I made my usual cup of herbal tea, the same blend I've been drinking for years, comforting, familiar. The kind of drink that reminds you that things can still feel like home, even when so much else feels lost. I settled into my favorite chair by the window, the one that faces my garden, or what used to be my garden. Once upon a time, it was full of color flowers and bloom trees, lush with leaves. Now, no matter how much I water or tend to it, it refuses to thrive. The roses won't bloom, and the grass stays stubbornly brown in patches. There's a metaphor in there, I'm sure of it, but I can't bring myself to dig too deep. It's a quiet sadness, one I've grown used to. And then there's Adam, my only son. 4 years of silence. I've learned to live with it even though it sits like a weight in my chest. No birthday cards, no calls, not even a simple text, just nothing. He stopped talking to me all those years ago, and over time I've come to accept it. I try not to think about it, but sometimes in the stillness of mornings like this, I find myself wondering where I went wrong. What happened to us? But this morning, just as I was letting the weight of the years settle in, something happened. A knock on the door, soft, almost hesitant, like it didn't quite belong in my world. It wasn't the usual knock, the impatient tap of the mailman or the neighbor asking for sugar. This one was different. One knock, then the sound of footsteps quickly retreating. I opened the door, and there it was. A plain brown package wrapped with care, a thin blue ribbon tied neatly around the middle. My heart skipped. I didn't need to look at the handwriting to know who it was from. It had been 3 years, but I'd know that handwriting anywhere. Ezra. The letters precise and exact, like blueprints. My breath caught in my throat. It was him. The silence that had stretched between us was about to be broken. I stood there for a moment, just staring at the package, the blue ribbon gleaming in the soft morning light. It felt almost surreal, like I was looking at something that didn't belong in my world. The silence had stretched on for so long, I had almost convinced myself it was permanent. Almost. But now, standing on my doorstep, I held something that had the power to shatter that illusion. With trembling hands, I brought the package inside the warm scent of my herbal tea, still lingering in the air behind me. The weight of it was light, but it felt heavy with meaning. I set it down gently on the kitchen table, the same spot where for years I had opened bills, letters and birthday cards that came from friends who were far more consistent than my own flesh and blood. But this was different. The ribbon was a rich crimson, a color that seemed almost too bold against the dullness of my life these past few years. I ran my fingers along the neat folds of the paper. It was wrapped with care, too much care, the kind of care you give something precious. I felt my pulse quicken, the familiar ache of longing creeping back into my chest. My heart was telling me not to open it, that it was too much to bear. But curiosity, that old familiar companion, urged me forward. I untied the ribbon slowly, careful not to ruin the delicate wrapping. Beneath it I found a simple brown box. I opened it, and inside were cookies, dozens of them. Each one was perfectly shaped and intricately decorated stars with dusting of sugar leaves etched in fine icing and flowers that looked like they could have been plucked from a garden in full bloom. The colors were vibrant against the plain white of the box, and yet as beautiful as they were, they made my heart ache. I hadn't expected this. Of all the things I had imagined in the quiet of my mornings, cookies had never crossed my mind. Adam, baking. He had never been the type. I couldn't remember a time when he had even shown interest in the kitchen. The cookies, so carefully crafted, seemed like something he would have never thought to do. And yet here they were, each one an intricate little piece of art, each one somehow tied to him. To us. I picked up the small card that was taped inside the lid, its edges slightly curled from being handled. It was simple, the handwriting unmistakable, Adam's. That same neat, precise script. He had always written like that, every letter formed with careful deliberation, no curve wasted. It was the kind of writing that seemed mechanical, almost like a blueprint. I read the words aloud, though they felt strange coming from my lips. "Happy birthday, Mom. Let's try again." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Let's try again. I swallowed hard. I hadn't expected to hear from Adam, let alone receive something like this. The silence had stretched on so long I had almost convinced myself that I would never hear from him again. But now these cookies, these words felt like an invitation I wasn't sure I was ready to accept. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. I blinked them back quickly, afraid that if I allowed myself to feel too much, I might lose control. How long had I waited for this? For some sign that he still cared, that he hadn't completely shut me out. But the longing that surged inside me was mingled with something else, something darker, a mix of fear and confusion. Was this real? Was this a genuine attempt to reconnect? Or was this just another cruel reminder of what had been lost? I picked up one of the cookies, its delicate edges still intact. I held it in my hands for a moment, weighing the emotions that seemed to hang in the air. I wanted to eat it. I wanted to take a bite, to taste the sweetness, and somehow feel closer to the son I had lost. But something inside me held me back. It was pride, perhaps, or maybe fear. Fear of what might happen if I let myself indulge in the small comfort this gesture offered. Would it open the floodgates of emotion I wasn't ready to deal with? Would it remind me of all the years that had passed without a word from him? No, I decided. I couldn't eat them. Not yet. Instead, I wrapped the cookies carefully, putting them back in the box and closing the lid. I needed distance. I needed time to think. I needed to clear the storm of emotions swirling inside me before I could even begin to understand what this all meant. I thought of Emily, my daughter-in-law. She lived just down the street and had always been kind to me, especially during those years when Adam had pulled away. Maybe she would understand. Maybe she would know what to make of this. I drove to Emily's house later that afternoon, the box of cookies sitting beside me in the passenger seat. The sun had begun to dip low, casting that soft orange glow across the trees. It felt like a perfect afternoon, peaceful, serene. But my thoughts were anything but peaceful. I kept replaying Adam's words in my mind. Let's try again. Was this an apology, a reconciliation, or was it something else entirely? Emily greeted me with her usual warm smile when I arrived, her face lighting up when she saw the package. She knew something was up, but I didn't explain. I handed her the box, watching as she opened it with genuine curiosity. "Oh, Sarah," she said softly, picking up a cookie. "These are beautiful. They're from Adam," I replied, my voice thick. "I didn't know what to do with them. I thought you might like them." Emily's smile faded just a little. She could tell I was struggling. "Thank you," she said quietly, her eyes meeting mine. "I'll take care of them." I nodded and turned to leave, the weight of the moment sitting heavy in my chest. As I walked out the door, I tried not to feel relieved that the package was no longer in my hands. It felt easier this way, at least for now. I wasn't ready to face it head on, not yet. As I walked back to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that this might be the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for. But whatever it was, I knew one thing for sure: things would never be the same again. The next morning I stood by the kitchen counter, the soft hum of the kettle filling the silence of my house. My hand was steady as I poured the hot water over the tea bag, the familiar ritual grounding me after the whirlwind of emotions from yesterday. I still couldn't fully grasp what had happened, what that package meant. The cookies, the note, Adam. I wondered for the 100th time if this was the beginning of something real, or just another fleeting moment that would leave me with more questions than answers. I sighed, watching the steam rise from my cup as I wrapped my hands around it for warmth. The kitchen, bathed in the soft morning light, felt like it was holding its breath along with me. As I settled into my favorite chair, I could still smell the faint sweetness of the cookies on my hands. I hadn't eaten a single one, but their presence had lingered, an unwelcome reminder of all the time lost. Just as I took my first sip, the phone rang. At first, I thought I imagined it. Who would be calling at this hour? But the persistent ringing grew louder, pulling me out of my thoughts. I placed the cup down carefully, my fingers lingering on the porcelain for just a moment before I answered. "Hello?" I said, my voice a little raspier than usual. There was a slight pause on the other end, and then, as if nothing had ever changed, I heard his voice. "Hi, Mom. It's Adam." I froze. Adam, my son. The voice that hadn't spoken to me in years was suddenly filling the room, as if no time had passed at all. It sounded casual, too casual. There was no hesitation, no warmth, just the same flat tone I had grown so accustomed to. "Hey," I said, my voice betraying a tremor I couldn't hide. I got your package." There was a beat of silence on the line, and I could almost feel him on the other side, gauging my reaction, trying to decide if he should say more. I shifted in my chair, the phone feeling heavy in my hand. "Good," he said, as if it was just another check mark on his list of things to do. "So, did you like it?" I hesitated, unsure how to respond. The cookies, the gift, the note. How could I possibly explain everything I was feeling in one simple sentence? I didn't eat them," I said carefully. My words slow and deliberate. I gave them to Emily. She lives nearby and, well, I wasn't sure what to do with them. The words felt wrong coming out of my mouth, as though they were inadequate, as though I was betraying something in the process of explaining myself. I hadn't wanted to eat the cookies. I hadn't been ready to dive into whatever emotions they might have stirred. Giving them to Emily felt like the easiest way to avoid what they represented, something I wasn't sure I could face. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment I thought he had hung up. But then his voice came sharp and clipped. "You gave them to Emily." The words hit me like a slap. "Yes," I answered, my voice small now. "I thought she might like them. She's always been kind to me, especially when you—" I stopped myself, realizing I was treading on ground I didn't want to cross. But Adam didn't let it go. "They weren't for her mom," he said, his voice suddenly tightening. "They were for you, only you." His words struck me like a lightning bolt, sudden and jarring, leaving me stunned in the moment. It was as if he had just ripped off the layers of calm I had been carefully building around the situation. "Only you." The words echoed in my mind, and my heart sank. His anger, barely contained, was there now, sharp and biting, as though I had done something terribly wrong by simply passing the cookies to Emily. I couldn't comprehend it. I had thought this was a gesture, an olive branch of sorts, but Adam's response? It was like I had missed some critical part of the message he was sending. "Adam," I said, struggling to find my voice, the words feeling clumsy on my tongue. I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't know what they meant. My throat tightened as I spoke. I wasn't ready. I wasn't sure. He let out a sharp exhale, something between frustration and disbelief. "You never do," he muttered, his voice now tinged with bitterness. "You never get it, do you? You never understand when I'm trying, when I'm really trying." His words hit like a punch, but I couldn't even speak. I sat frozen in my chair, the phone pressed to my ear, unable to move. I wanted to ask him why after all these years of silence, he was suddenly reaching out with cookies. I wanted to scream, to ask him what he expected from me, what he thought I would do with a gesture like this. But all I could manage was the hollow ache that filled the space between us. The line went quiet again, the tension hanging in the air like smoke. I could feel the walls rising around him, closing in, and with it my own fear that whatever had started with those cookies was already unraveling, slipping through my fingers before I could grasp it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Adam spoke again, his voice cold now. "Forget it, Mom. Just forget it," he said, his tone flat. And then, without another word, he hung up. The dial tone hummed in my ear, louder than I had ever remembered it. I lowered the phone slowly, feeling like it was a weight in my hand. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, trying to make sense of the conversation I had just had. But all I was left with was a sinking feeling, like I had just missed something important, something that might have been my last chance, and I didn't know how to get it back. The day after the phone call, everything seemed to shift. A cold wind seemed to blow through my house, chilling everything it touched. The lingering tension from my conversation with Adam was still thick in the air, like an unspoken cloud, and my thoughts kept returning to the same question. Why had he sent the cookies? Why now, after all this time, I went through the motions of the day, but my mind couldn't focus. Every time I glanced at the kitchen table, the small bundle of cookies I had left with Emily the day before haunted me. I couldn't help but replay my conversation with Adam, his anger still echoing in my ears. They were for you, only you. I couldn't shake it. Why had he been so upset? Was it really about the cookies? Or was it something else? I wanted to call Emily to check in on her, but I didn't want to seem overbearing. After all, I had only given her the cookies out of a sense of detachment. Now I wondered if I had been wrong to do so. The evening arrived quietly, but the peace didn't last. The phone rang late that night. I nearly jumped out of my skin when I saw Emily's name flash on the screen. My stomach dropped in an instant. "Sarah, it's Emily." Her voice came through shakily, thick with panic. "I need you to come. Something's wrong. I don't know what happened. Emily, what's going on?" I asked, my heart pounding. I was already on my feet, grabbing my coat. "I'm at the hospital," she said, the words coming out in a rush. I collapsed. They're running tests, but I don't know. They're saying it could be food poisoning, but I don't understand. I don't know what happened." I could hear the strain in her voice, the confusion and fear. It struck me in the gut, this sudden turn of events. What had caused her to suddenly fall ill? I couldn't shake the feeling that this had something to do with the cookies, my son's cookies, the ones he had sent only for me. Had something been wrong with them? I drove to the hospital in a daze, my mind racing through every possibility. I had never seen Emily like this. She had been fine just hours before, laughing and smiling, accepting the cookies with the same warmth she always showed me. So, what had happened? Was it a coincidence, or was there something more sinister at play? When I arrived, Emily was lying in a hospital bed, her skin pale, her eyes closed. The machines around her beeped steadily, but she didn't seem aware of my presence. I approached the bed slowly, my heart aching with fear. "Emily," I whispered, my voice trembling as I took her hand. Her eyes fluttered open slowly. "Sarah, I don't know what's happening. I don't feel right." "What do the doctors say?" I asked, squeezing her hand. "They're not sure yet," Emily said weakly. "They keep asking me if I ate anything unusual. I told them about the cookies you brought over, but they don't think it's that. They keep saying it's too sudden, that it couldn't be food poisoning." The weight of her words crashed down on me. I couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread in my stomach. It had to be the cookies. I had never felt so uncertain about something in my life. Emily had eaten them, and she had fallen ill so quickly. I hadn't touched them myself, but the connection seemed impossible to ignore. "Do you think it could have been the cookies?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily looked up at me, her eyes wide with concern. "I don't know," she murmured. "I've never had any issues with food before, but after eating those, I don't know what to think." I stayed with her for hours that night, but the doctors weren't able to pinpoint the cause of her illness. The tests didn't give them anything concrete to work with, and all they could do was monitor her vitals and wait for more answers. By the time I got home, I felt numb. My mind kept turning over the events of the day like a broken record. There was something wrong about this entire situation: the cookies, Emily's illness, Adam's strange reaction to my handling of the gift. Everything felt tangled together in a way I couldn't yet understand. As I entered my house, a sense of unease washed over me. The quiet seemed suffocating the shadows in the corners of the room creeping up on me. My eyes fell on the trash can. I had been cleaning up earlier in the day, clearing away the remnants of my attempt to tidy the house and clear my mind. But now the thought that something might be hidden in that mess gnawed at me. I approached the trash uncertain of what I was looking for, but knowing I had to find anything that might explain the unease building inside me. I dug through the trash carefully, the sound of crinkling paper filling the quiet of the kitchen. And then something caught my eye, an unfamiliar bottle, clear and small, nestled at the bottom of the trash bag. I pulled it out, my pulse quickening. The bottle wasn't mine. I hadn't seen it before, and it didn't look like anything I used in the house. It was almost as if it didn't belong in my life at all. The contents were a white powder faintly clinging to the walls of the bottle. It wasn't a substance I recognized, but I had a sinking feeling in my stomach that told me I didn't want to know. My first instinct was to throw it away to pretend I hadn't found it, but I couldn't. I had to know what it was. It was too much of a coincidence that it had turned up right after Emily's collapse. My mind raced back to the cookies, to Adam's angry words, to the way everything seemed to be falling apart. Was this some kind of mistake? Or had someone intentionally put something in those cookies? And if so, who? I set the bottle down on the counter, my hands shaking. It wasn't the first time I'd felt like something was off, but now it was undeniable. Something had happened, and I had no idea what it meant yet, but I couldn't ignore it. It felt like the beginning of something much bigger, something I wasn't prepared for. The night after Emily's collapse, I couldn't sleep. The fear that had settled in my chest felt like a physical weight, one that made it hard to breathe, to think, to even function. The bottle I found in the trash kept staring at me, an unknown substance that made my skin crawl. I kept telling myself it was a coincidence, that my mind was jumping to conclusions, but something deep inside me told me I couldn't ignore it. I had to know. I had to know what was in the cookies, his cookies. Adam's strange and angry reaction. Emily's sudden illness. The mysterious bottle. It was all connected. There was no other explanation, no way to rationalize the events any longer. The next morning, I found myself standing outside a small lab tucked behind a medical office complex on the outskirts of town. I wasn't sure why I had chosen this particular lab. Maybe it was the quiet, the anonymity of it, or maybe it was because I didn't want to deal with any more questions than I had to. I had already convinced myself I would never be able to get clear answers from Adam, not after his outburst on the phone. But the lab, it was different. It felt like the last piece of the puzzle, the one thing that could finally give me some clarity. I stood there for a moment before pushing open the door and stepping inside. The air was sterile, sharp, with the scent of chemicals and the hum of machinery in the background. The receptionist gave me a nod, but I could tell she wasn't used to people walking in with things like cookies. "How can I help you?" she asked, her voice polite but distant. "I need to have something tested," I said, my voice unsteady. "These cookies?" I placed the small container I had carefully wrapped in my bag onto the counter. "And this." I slid the small bottle over to her, my hands trembling slightly. She raised an eyebrow as she looked at the items, but didn't ask any questions. "We can run some basic tests for you. If you want a more detailed analysis, it'll take a little longer." Her tone was clinical, detached, like this was a regular request. "I need the full analysis." I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "Please, I need to know what's in them." She nodded, her professional expression never wavering. "I'll get the technician. It'll take a few hours to process everything. You can wait in the lobby or come back later." "I'll wait," I said, my voice firm now, despite the fear gnawing at me. I couldn't walk away from this. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. The minutes dragged on. I sat in the sterile lobby, the ticking of the clock on the wall echoing in the stillness. My mind was racing, replaying the events over and over. Emily's pale face in the hospital bed, Adam's voice on the phone laced with anger and bitterness, the strange bottle, And now the cookies. I tried to breathe deeply, but my thoughts kept spiraling. I could almost hear the voice of doubt whispering in my ear. What if you're wrong? What if you're making something out of nothing? But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The pieces were falling into place, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. After what felt like an eternity, the technician came to collect the items. It won't be long now, he said, his tone almost too casual. We'll contact you with the results as soon as we know. I nodded, swallowing hard. Thank you. I barely managed to hold it together as I left the lab. The sunlight outside felt too bright, too harsh. My hands were cold as I clutched my purse to my chest, the questions swirling inside me like a storm. The call came late in the afternoon. Ms. Evans. The voice on the other end was crisp, professional. We've completed the analysis of the cookies and the substance you provided. You'll want to come in for the full report, but I wanted to give you the preliminary results. My stomach clenched. What did you find? There are traces of a rare toxic plant in the cookies, the technician continued, specifically hemlock. It's a potent neurotoxin known for its lethal properties. It can cause paralysis, respiratory failure. It's dangerous. Extremely dangerous. He paused. If someone had ingested even a small amount, the results could have been catastrophic. I couldn't breathe. My heart stopped for a moment, and everything around me seemed to blur. Hemlock, the same poison that had been used for centuries, its deadly nature known for causing slow, painful death. The cookies Adam had sent to me contained this poison, and Emily had eaten them. The reality of what I was hearing hit me like a freight train. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to pretend I hadn't just heard those words, to believe that somehow this was all a mistake. But there was no mistaking it. The results were clear. Are you sure? My voice was barely a whisper. I'm afraid so, the technician replied. This wasn't an accident. Hemlock doesn't just appear in food by chance. It was deliberately introduced into the cookies. Deliberately. My mind reeled. Adam, my son. The anger in his voice. The way he had sent the cookies, then reacted when I gave them away. It all came crashing together now. He had tried to hurt me. The thought hit me with such force that I nearly stumbled backward. Adam had been the one to send these cookies, the cookies that were meant for me, only me, and he had poisoned them. I hung up the phone, my fingers numb. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was floating outside my own body, disconnected from everything that was happening. How could this be real? How could my own son, my own flesh and blood, have done something like this? I stared out the window, the world outside seeming so normal, so untouched by the horror that was unfolding in my life. But I knew now. I knew that this wasn't just an isolated incident. This was deliberate, and it was the beginning of something I couldn't yet understand. I had to face it. Adam was capable of far worse than I had ever imagined. The question now was, what was I going to do about it? The evening after the call from the lab, I could barely sit still. My mind was spinning, racing between the chilling results of the toxicology report and the undeniable truth that Adam, my son, had tried to harm me. The shock of it all had settled into a cold, gnawing dread that wouldn't let go. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the poisoned cookies, his gift, his message to me. And the thought of Emily sick in the hospital plagued my every moment. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront him. I had to hear it from his mouth, even if I already knew the truth. But how? How do you confront your own child, the one you've raised, the one you love, with something as monstrous as this? How could I face him knowing what he had done? But the answers were slipping away from me, and I could feel the knot in my chest growing tighter. The time had come. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I grabbed my coat and walked out of the house. The drive to Adams was a blur. My hands were cold on the steering wheel, my thoughts distant. I had rehearsed what I would say, but each time I ran the words through my mind, they came out wrong. What do you say to someone who has done something unforgivable? How do you even start? When I arrived at his house, the silence between us seemed almost suffocating. I stood in the doorway taking a deep breath before I knocked on the door. Adam opened it almost immediately, his face blank, but his eyes narrowing as soon as he saw me. "Mom," he said, his voice flat. "This is a surprise. I needed to talk to you." I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "It's important." He stepped aside, allowing me to enter. His house was as sterile and immaculate as always, everything perfectly arranged, each object in its place. It was a home in the most clinical sense, a space devoid of warmth, devoid of life. It made my chest ache just to look at it. I followed him into the living room, where he gestured for me to sit. The tension between us was palpable. It hung in the air like smoke, thick and heavy. "Sit down, Mom," Adam said, his tone almost too casual, but there was something in his eyes, something that didn't match the casualness of his voice. There was a coldness, a guardedness that unsettled me. "What's this all about?" I sat down, my hands trembling slightly in my lap. I had to ask. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. "I got the results from the lab," I said, my voice steady. "The cookies, they were poisoned, Adam." His expression flickered for just a second, but he quickly masked it with a smirk. "Poisoned. Are you sure about that?" His words were dismissive, like he couldn't possibly take my concerns seriously. "I thought you didn't even eat them." I could hear the lie in his voice, feel the walls going up between us. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Adam was good at playing the long game, at hiding his true feelings behind a mask. But I knew him better than anyone. I could see the way his jaw clenched, the way his eyes darted away from me when he spoke. "I didn't eat them," I said, holding his gaze. "But Emily did, and she got sick. Very sick. She's in the hospital right now. You need to explain what's going on, Adam. What did you put in those cookies?" Adam's face remained neutral, but his shoulders stiffened. "I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. I thought you'd appreciate the gesture. I wanted to make things right. And now you're making it into something else, something ridiculous." His words were defensive, but something in the way he said them made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. He wasn't just lying, he was hiding something, and that something was so much darker than I was prepared to face. "I'm not making this up, Adam," I said, my voice firm. "The lab found traces of hemlock in the cookies. It's a poison. You can't just accidentally put that in food. So tell me what's going on. Why did you do it?" He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes flicking away from mine for a fraction of a second. Then he looked back at me, his expression hardening. "You always were dramatic. I don't know what you're trying to accuse me of, but I didn't put anything in those cookies. It's ridiculous. They were just cookies. Okay?" I leaned forward, my eyes narrowing. "Stop lying, Adam. I know you better than that. You are the one who sent them. You are the one who baked them. Don't tell me you didn't know what you were doing." He went silent for a moment, his face a mask of indifference. Then, just as I was about to speak again, he muttered, "It wasn't meant to be like this." The words hit me like a shockwave. I froze. "What do you mean?" Adam's gaze shifted, and I saw something flicker in his eyes, something dark. For a split second he seemed vulnerable, as if the anger he had been holding back for so long was finally breaking through. But it was fleeting. In the next instant he turned his face away from me, as if to shield whatever he was hiding. "It was just a way to get your attention," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know. I thought maybe if you saw that I was trying, you'd finally see me again." The words caught in my throat, but I pushed them aside. "By poisoning me, is that what you think I need to see you?" He flinched, and for a moment there was an eerie silence between us. The coldness in his eyes was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite read. But his defenses were still up, and I realized then that no matter what he said, no matter how many times he denied it, Adam was hiding something. And that something was far more dangerous than I ever imagined. "I'm not going to let you get away with this, Adam," I said, standing up, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. "I don't know what's happened to you, but I'm not going to be part of it." Adam's eyes flickered, and for a moment I thought he might say something else. But instead he just looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Do what you have to do," he said, his voice as cold as ice. And with that, I turned and walked out of his house. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever had been left between us was gone now, and I didn't know how to get it back. The following days passed in a blur of confusion and disbelief. I couldn't shake the image of Adam's cold face as I left his house, the echo of his words still ringing in my ears. Do what you have to do. What was I supposed to do? How could I act on what I now knew to be true? My own son had poisoned me. The disbelief settled into a cold numbness that kept me in a fog, unable to process the depths of the betrayal, let alone figure out the next step. But the truth had a way of dragging you out of the fog, whether you were ready or not. And I wasn't ready. No, not at all. By the time I got back home, my thoughts were racing. What was my next move? Emily had been stable for a while now. Her condition was improving slowly, and the doctors assured me that she would recover. But every time I looked at her lying in that sterile hospital bed, I was reminded of the gravity of the situation. My son had done this. He had poisoned her too, and there was no denying it anymore. I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I called the police. Detective Lucas Hunter was assigned to my case. From the moment we spoke on the phone, I could tell that he took my concerns seriously. The way he asked questions, the careful tone he used, it was clear that he wasn't brushing me off. I had heard of him before, an experienced investigator known for his methodical approach. He'd seen his fair share of complicated cases, but something told me this one would haunt him for a while. We met the next day at my house. The air between us was thick with unspoken understanding as I handed over everything I had: the cookies, the toxicology report, and the recording of my conversation with Adam. I had been recording every conversation I could get with him after the results came back from the lab. And now, as I listened to the recording again, hearing Adam's voice trying to cover up the truth, I felt the same sickening sense of horror all over again. "Are you sure you want to go forward with this?" Detective Hunter asked, his gaze locked on mine. There was no judgment, just a quiet empathy that made my heart ache even more. It was a weight I didn't want to bear alone, but I had no choice. "I don't think I have any other option." I whispered, the words coming out as a confession more than an answer. He nodded, and without another word, he left with the evidence, and I could feel a part of myself leaving with him. The truth, it seemed, had finally been set in motion. But would I ever truly be ready for what came next? The days that followed felt like I was moving through a fog. Emily was discharged from the hospital, but she was still recovering. Her once vibrant energy was gone, replaced by a quiet fragility. She didn't remember much about the day she ate the cookies. She recalled a dull ache in her stomach, nausea, and then nothing. I hadn't told her everything yet. I wasn't sure I could. How do you explain to someone you love that their husband, your son, had tried to kill you both? I stayed with Emily as much as I could, offering her comfort, but my mind never stopped racing. I would sit in the hospital room with her, trying to pretend everything was fine, but every minute, every hour that passed, the truth felt like a shadow growing longer. I wanted to be strong for her, but it was hard to be strong when I felt so shattered myself. The weight of Adam's betrayal pressed down on me, and I knew deep in my bones that it was just the tip of the iceberg. A week later, I received a call from Detective Hunter. "I have some information," he said, his voice calm, but there was an edge to it that made my stomach drop. "You were right. Your son Adam. He's been researching poisons and toxins for years. There's a trail, Sarah. It's all pointing back to him." I sat down, my legs giving way beneath me. I had to hold the phone with both hands to steady myself. "What do you mean?" I asked, barely able to speak. Before he sent those cookies, Adam had been frequenting online forums, reading about various toxins. Some of the chemicals he was researching, they matched the exact trace elements found in the cookies. Hemlock wasn't the only substance he was looking into. It seems like he had been planning this for a while, long before the cookies ever arrived at your door. I could hear the sound of his breathing on the other end, the weight of the discovery hanging between us. They found traces of more substances in his journals, he continued. He's been cataloging them. This wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was planned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Adam had been living this double life, hiding his dark secrets from everyone, including me. His meticulous research into poisons, his coldness, and now this, it all made sense. He wasn't just angry or hurt. He was methodical, calculating, and willing to do anything to get what he wanted. And what he wanted was control. Detective I said, my voice thick with emotion, "What happens now?" "We have enough evidence now to move forward with an arrest," he said. "We're issuing a warrant. We'll take him in." My heart raced. The words arrest sounded so final. Adam, my son, the person I had raised, would be taken away in handcuffs. My hands shook as I put the phone down, unable to process everything that had just been laid out before me. The world as I knew it had shattered. The next few days were a blur. I barely registered the passage of time. When the knock on the door finally came, I wasn't surprised. Adam's arrest was as inevitable as it was heartbreaking. I watched through the window as the police pulled up in front of my house. My heart hammered in my chest, but there was nothing left to do but watch. Detective Hunter came to me once more, his voice quiet as he explained what would happen next. Adam would be held for questioning, and the investigation would continue. But I knew that it was over. My son, the boy I had loved and raised, was gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable, someone capable of cruelty beyond anything I could have imagined. And as the police took him away, I stood there numb. Emily was safe now, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the world I had known was forever changed. Adam's secrets were finally out, but so was the truth. Everything I thought I knew about my son had been a lie. And there was no coming back from that. The days after Adam's arrest were a blur of emotion, a mixture of grief, anger, and disbelief. Emily was recovering, but the weight of what had happened, the poison, the betrayal, hung heavily in the air. I spent more time with her, but my thoughts constantly drifted back to Adam, to the son I had loved unconditionally, to the boy I thought I had known. I sat alone in my living room one night, the stillness of the house surrounding me. My eyes fell on the small box I had placed on the kitchen table, the same box that had once held the poisoned cookies. I hadn't opened it since that day, but I knew it was time. Slowly, I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled between the tissue paper, was the remaining cookie, the one I hadn't given away. I touched it gently, the frosting now dulled with time, the delicate edges slightly cracked. Next to it was the card from Adam, the words, "Happy birthday, Mom. Let's try again," still burned in my memory. I could still feel the sting of his betrayal in my chest. The boy I had nurtured, the boy I had poured my love into, had become someone else entirely. This wasn't the son I had raised. He was a stranger now, someone capable of such cruelty, someone I couldn't recognize. And yet, as much as I hated what he had done, I still felt the remnants of that motherly love, the longing for a child I could no longer reach. With trembling hands, I placed the cookie and the card into a small wooden box, one I kept hidden on the highest shelf of my closet. I locked it away, a painful reminder of a past I would never forget. As I sat there in the silence of my home, I realized that the hardest part was over. The truth had come to light. Justice had been served. But I didn't know if I could ever feel truly safe again. The silence between Adam and me, between a mother and her child, was final. The story of Sarah and Adam is a stark reminder of how deeply betrayal can cut, especially when it comes from those we love the most. Adam's actions, once hidden behind a mask of family, finally reveal the terrifying truth of what happens when love turns into something unrecognizable, something toxic. It's a painful realization that we often place trust in the ones closest to us, believing they will always act with care, but sometimes that trust is shattered in the most unimaginable ways. What struck me most was Sarah's journey from the shock of receiving a poisoned gift from her own son to the heart-wrenching decision of locking away the remnants of a past she can no longer embrace. It made me reflect on how we as a society can be quick to overlook the warning signs in those we love. We wrap ourselves in the comfort of familiarity, often ignoring the darker sides of those around us. We tell ourselves that love is enough, that it will shield us from harm, but it's not always true. We need to ask ourselves, how often do we silence our intuition in favor of maintaining peace or preserving relationships? How often do we ignore the subtle cracks in our connections, believing they're small enough to overlook? Let Sarah's story be a reminder to us all that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can always take the steps necessary to protect ourselves from harm. It's time we stop brushing off the red flags and start valuing our own safety mentally and emotionally. Have you ever been in a situation where love blinded you to the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's discuss how we can better protect ourselves from betrayal.